Welcome to the Wisdom Rising podcast. I'm your host, Lama Tsultrim Allione, and my goal with this podcast is really to open your own wisdom, to have your own wisdom rising, either through the meditations that I lead or introduce you to, or to the people that I interview that bring wisdom with them in their own voice, in their own traditions. So we look forward to raising our wisdom together on the Wisdom Rising podcast. And I'm so happy to share this with you. Welcome. So I thought instead of leading a meditation at the beginning like I usually do, that we would kind of meditate as I'm teaching, because there's definitely some things to meditate on that I am going to teach today. I hope that sounds good to you. These are, again, teachings from the Semde lineage that preceded the lineage of Semde in Tibet. These are the teachers from Oddiyana and India. And so Oddiyana is this mysterious place that we think was around the Swat Valley in northeast Pakistan. At one time, it was a great tantric place, and there were many women teachers there to the point where it was called the land of the Dakinis. And in this lineage that I've been teaching from, there are 6 women, and they're often the teachers of princes or kings. And there's such an interesting sort of sociological mix in this lineage. And that's how Tantra was. Tantra was really taking the teachings and taking Buddhism out of the monastic elite into the lay community and into people that would be considered to be low caste, or not people that should be mixing with kings and priests and so on, such as prostitutes or winemakers or pig herders. And but they were all together and they were all practicing together. So it was a big opening and kind of breakdown of a lot of those social barriers. The Buddha also, and the monastic community also, really broke down a lot of those social barriers by saying that anyone could become ordained as a monk. And in fact, some of his most honored and most dignified disciples were from the so-called untouchable caste or the lower castes. And that was pretty revolutionary, what the Buddha did in that sense. And then the Tantric tradition that arrived about 800, 900 years after the Buddha took that further and included a lot more women and women teachers. And also in the Tantric period, we begin to have female Buddhas and images of female Buddhas, such as Prajnaparamita. And also the Dakinis came in with the Tantric period, and so on. And so these teachings are from Oddiyana, and they're very pithy biographies of these 21 teachers that preceded Vimalamitra, who took them to Tibet, along with Sri Simha. So it gives their essential teachings that awoke them to the ultimate understanding. And then the songs or the expressions of that realization. And I received the Tibetan from Adriano Clemente, who translated these. I don't know, but I think it's the first translation of these that was ever done. And it's in the book called The Supreme Source, a really wonderful book. And that's when I first met them. And then I got curious about the Tibetan for these, and like, well, what was that actually in Tibet? And so I looked at the Tibetan. I have been looking at the Tibetan, and then sort of retranslating and reteaching them according to how I understand them. So I'll be looking at the Tibetan and also at the English that from Oddiyana's translation. So the first line he translated, bodhicitta, beyond arising and ceasing. And let's see. So in Tibetan, it's ke gak me pe changchup sem. It's very short, very short. So K is birth, Gak is to cease, in other words, death, and then May. So not birth, not death. And then sort of connecting that to Bei, Changchup Sem. So this is the word for bodhicitta, but you have to keep in mind that in the Dzogchen teachings, particularly in Semde, which is actually an abbreviation for Changchup Sem Day, day meaning series, the word bodhicitta really means our primordial, unfabricated perfection, our natural awakeness. And this is a primary concept of Dzogchen, that we are already perfect and we are already awake. We just forgot. But we can remember. And that very remembering is effortless. There's no endeavor involved. There's no stress or strain. There's no working at it. In fact, the working at it is part of the problem. So this first line simply means that this Changchup Sam, the bodhicitta mind, or the mind of awakening. And remember, mind here is not brain. This is awareness. This is that awareness which will be there when you die, and which was there before you were born. And so it's saying that it is unborn and unceasing. Ke gak me. Not born and not ceasing. So let's take a moment and feel into what is present right now that wasn't born when you were born and isn't going to die when you die. There is something. In fact, this is something that science hasn't been able to pinpoint, which is consciousness itself. So let's feel into our unborn, unceasing bodhicitta. And then the next line is Nangwa Rangshin Mepa Yin. So these are all really short little phrases and really interesting. So Nangwa, if you've been listening to me teach, you've probably heard me talk about Nang. Nang is usually translated as appearances, but it can be a verb. So in a way, our world, as we know it, is Nang-ing, because it's in constant change. When you look out at whatever you're seeing now, I'm seeing the house, the sky, some flowers, and the ocean beyond. When you look out like that, this is something that's presence-ing. It's a verb. It's not a solid thing, and it's not separate from your awareness. And that's the Nang. The Nang is all this phenomena of the senses and also thoughts. All the Nangma. So, Nang La Rangshen. So Rangshen is a also common Dzogchen word. and it means nature, like the nature of something. Rangshen me, Bayin. So he translates that, the first line he translates as bodhicitta is beyond arising and ceasing. I would say bodhicitta is not born or ceasing, because it says mepa. It's not, doesn't say beyond, it says not. So bodhicitta isn't that. It's not whatever's born and dying, it's not that. And then the second line he translates as is vision. So that's how he's translating appearances. Vision that appears, that's not, even though it has no self-nature. So literally, this means appearances, nature, not is. So he's saying that this appearing, this nama that is appearing, doesn't have any rangshan, any actual self-nature. In other words, it's not the solid noun that we think it is. It's not a reified, separate, discrete entity. None of it is. So let's meditate on that a little bit. That these appearances, the Nangwa, have no self-nature. In other words, although we call them something and we experience them as something, they're actually not. So then, gom, so that's the word for meditation, gondu mepe changchup sam. So he translates it, bodhicitta is beyond meditation, but it literally says gomdu me. It's not meditation. Changchup sam. Again, repeating that word, changchup sam. So many times in the teachings, in Mahayana teachings, and also in the Dzogchen teaching, it will point out what things are not. And then that sort of naturally throws you into what they are. But rather than stating what they are, they state what they're not. Why do you think so? Why wouldn't you just state what they are? Why would you state what they're not? So this sort of habit, I guess you could say, or tendency to use negative language is because by saying what it's not, it throws you into, hopefully, the experience of what it is. But what it is, you don't want to solidify and reify. So you don't state so much what it is as what it's not. So, gumdu mepe changchup sem. So now, gumdu is meditation, and then mepa. So now it's meditation. Meditation, not changchup sem. So that is also really interesting because it's not meditation either. Or, I mean, quite literally what this says is non-meditation is changchup sem. It doesn't actually say is because the word yin isn't there, but it says gompa mepa is not meditation, and then changchup sem. So let's try to not meditate and experience changchup sem. So I think what this means is not efforting. You know, when we got, sometimes I say, okay, now let's meditate. And everyone kind of like, it's kind of like coming to attention in the military, sit up, straighten your back, fold your legs. Now that's meditation. So let's not meditate and be in changchup sem. So the next line, is Naljor Dewar Nyamo Tsun. Okay, so this line was really interesting when I looked it up, because what he has is the perfect conduct of the yogin who rests in bliss. But what it literally says is yogi, bliss, and then nyamo means like lying with a woman. It's a clear mo here. And tsun, a discipline. So he didn't put that at all, but that's what it says in the Tibetan. Nyalmo, nyal is to lie down, and mo is female. So this is obviously addressing the male yogi, heterosexual male. But the idea here, I believe, is that the discipline of the tsun, because that's the words that's used for like keeping your vow, keeping your discipline. The discipline of the yogi is the bliss of lying with a woman. So that would mean that, let's say, the experience of intimacy and that relaxation in that state, that is the discipline of the yogi. So that very forbidden thing for a monastic becomes a path of liberation, path of meditation. If it was female, heterosexual female, then it would be lying with a man. And if it was a homosexual relationship, it would be whatever, depending on male or female. Anyway, there's all those various gender options. But the main idea, I believe, here is that relaxation of intimacy, let's think about that and how that really actually brings you to a deep state of effortless openness. And perhaps that's what this is referring to. So that's a beautiful and kind of unique line there. There's a lot of emphasis on the absence of effort here. And in fact, this year, I'm going to be teaching retreats about effortless presence. And I think for many of us who have had disciplines for many years that involved effort, effortlessness is kind of hard, right? It's kind of making me blink as I'm feeling that wind in my eye. Oh, what if I experience that as space? Okay, now water. I can see water. I imagine some of you can see water. But if you can't see it, it's there and you have it in your body, a lot of it. So imagine that a water element is space. And now fire. So I don't think most of us are not looking at fire, but maybe some of you in northern climates sitting in front of fire, or you could open a wood stove and look at fire, or maybe you have a candle going. However, if you don't, You have fire in your body. That's what's making your body warm. So you can tune into fire in that way. So fire is also complete space. And then earth. Earth is perhaps the more difficult element to think of as space. That's all the solid things that you see around you and in your own bones, teeth, so on. It's the denser element. So all that earth that you have around you, it's the walls, the earth itself that's under you. All that is space. And in the text, it uses the word zok. So kind of like perfected by or completed by. So it's almost like the perfect experience of the elements is as not different than the expanse of the sky. Think about that. So if you can really rest your mind without effort, that is Buddha. So let's just try that. Try that effortless awareness. Of the awareness that's already perfect and present. There's no other nature of reality to meditate on other than this. Wow. These teachings are so profound. The fifth element is space. The other four elements, I didn't mention that because that's already is space. So, yes, these teachings are so amazing. So just again, that last line, Gumpaja, the meditating, Chuni Di Lame. So there's no other ultimate nature to meditate on than this. So in these weeks between these sessions, then meditate on these teachings, sit with the things that we touched on today. Walk with them, talk with them, cook with them. Just be there. Work with the teachings. And great to be with you. May you be well. May you be free of fear. And may you see the space in all the elements. Thank you, everyone, for being with us for this Wisdom Rising podcast. May it benefit all beings. And I'd like to take a moment to thank the production team of Wisdom Rising, and also to let you know that if you would like further information on my work or the associated people who work with Tara Mandala, you can reach out to the Tara Mandala website, TaraMandala.org. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.